Hello everyone, I am tasked with moderating and guiding our discussion today. To begin, I want to go through a little, since I'm an art historian, you're going to have to sit through a little art history before we get started. American artist Georgia O'Keeffe once said, "I found that I could say things with color and shapes that I couldn't say in other ways. Things I had no words for." And in art appreciation, I often introduce our discussion of art with the topic of purposes of art. And three of the ones that I think are pertinent to the artists we're talking about today is that art can give tangible form to the unknown. Art can give tangible form to feelings. And then art can help us see the world in a new way. And so that brings us to this idea of diverse lenses, different ways to view the world around us, different perspectives, different emotions, different ways to access emotions and feelings. I want to begin with a little bio of Louise Nevelson. Louise Nevelson's family immigrated from the Ukraine in 1905, eventually settling in New York City. She studied at the Art Students League and then worked for Roosevelt's New Deal program, the Federal Art Project, at one time under Diego Rivera, the muralist, and she worked as an art teacher. She also had her own practice. She described her early period of her career in the Federal Art Project as a time of searching and finding myself as an artist. She had her first solo show in 1941. Her early career followed a relatively conservative exploration of European modernism. As you can see, female nude from 1929. And Portrait of a Woman, her self-portrait from 1948. These predate what we see as her mature style. Her mature style developed in mid-century as a desire to expand on surrealism. Importantly, Surrealist gave many mid-century artists the conceptual basis to delve into what Nevelson will continuously explore, the possibility of objects to evoke ideas and feeling. And tonight I want to stress the idea of possibility, of art awakening possibilities within the viewer. She began her mature style by focusing on found objects and exploring the design possibilities in those cast-off items. As her characteristic style emerged, this is one of her later found objects. Found objects, in case you don't know, are as they sound, things that you find in your environment. She would place them together in what she called environments. She linked them visually by painting them all one color. And this is probably her most characteristic style. She would assemble the pieces that she found and usually paint them black, although sometimes there are other colors like white. And this is what is called, in art history, conceptual unity. Conceptual unity is the idea that the artist has a concept or an idea that unifies the objects, and this comes from surrealism. It may not be apparent to the viewer, but it invites us to engage in the possibilities for meaning. She gives the objects that she finds a new identity. Nevelson, like her fellow Russian artist Kandinsky, saw a universality in abstraction, a freedom from subject matter that paved the way for deeper imaginings. for deeper possibilities, for opening up a new identity for art. Aminah Robinson approaches art from a different way, maybe a little less cerebral, a little more intimate and personal. But she too is interested in the possibility of art to awaken imagination and connection. She was from Columbus, Ohio, and she said that she created art that filled the blank pages of American history, the lives and events of African Americans. In 2004, she was awarded a MacArthur grant, colloquially called a Genius Grant. She takes elements of material culture and also found objects, beads, buttons, fabric, her own materials that she made, and puts together pieces that are personal to her cultural identity, her history, her family. She celebrates themes of family, of ancestry, and of memory. And she also deals with found objects and the possibility of those materials to tell a story, to grant us an insight into the life and culture of her community. Because Robinson is a storyteller, and with the best storytellers, she elevates the ordinary to a grand scale. Our purpose tonight in this discussion is an examination of Louise Nevelson and Aminah Robinson's work in order to try to make sense of the purpose of art in our everyday. Here's a self-portrait from 1948. Another piece, a drawing, and her mixed media constructions. Bright and colorful, dynamic, energetic. Though visually they're different, Nevelson and Aminah Robinson, they still have a connection in that idea of the possibility of images. So I ask, can art be a useful tool in navigating our world, our diverse paths, our occupations, our realities? Does art and the study of ideas make our circumstances and lives more meaningful? Does it offer insight? If nothing else, thinking and contemplating new ideas allows us to relax our everyday brain, our work brain. And from that relaxation, we recharge, we refresh, we renew. That is one purpose of academic study, not simply in order to work, but in order to think. Art can also be a practical tool. And so I want to ask our panelists also, how is art a practical tool to interact with our everyday realities? Louise Nevelson worked with the idea of possibilities, the possibilities of an object, also how to change the identity of a collection of objects. This generalized idea of identity is also central to both artists' work. So, with having said all of that, I also want to talk about memory and how memory functions within a culture. Within our personal memories, our cultural identity, our cultural memories, and how that functions maybe in our everyday lives as well. So let's talk about, can art and reflecting on art and examining art benefit our community, our collective memory of Mobile, our collective identity or our individual identities within Mobile? Is narrative and art helpful or even essential to creating a whole and vibrant community? That's a big question. Anybody want to take it on? Is art helpful or even essential to creating a vibrant community?
I will start. I'm Monica J. Beasley. I actually, before I came down, I thanked this mother for bringing her 4 daughters to the museum because that's what my mom did for me. And I was like, I'm gonna let you know right now, it's a safe, for us, it's a safe place. It's free, right? And she brings her kids here. It's her 5th time. We would come back every day after Mass. So every Sunday. So I was like, I'm up here, I'm gonna do a lecture in a few minutes. So I wanted to acknowledge you as a parent. I don't know if she's single or not, but she had little small kids that been there more than once. And she knew Thursday was for free day. So that's how I'm gonna start this. That for me, the museum art is a safe place. It's something to it's tangible. It's something that is safe and it's for everybody. And that's the most museum's new motto. It's art for everyone here. And I'm the teacher.
Thanks, Monica. Peyton here. I teach ethics at the College of Medicine, and as Levita said earlier, integrate humanities into medical education. You were asking about, well, you asked 2 questions, but the one I just heard was, can art function importantly for the Mobile community? Yes, yes. Yeah. Some of the things that we have been all talking about as a community is who are we? What is our story? A shared collective story is hard to converge upon because of our diversity, the diverse lenses, so many diverse peoples, so many diverse heritages, geographically diverse in the United States, the whole bit. When I go downtown Manila and I see a mural, I'm larger than life invited to see reflected back at me my reality. That's the way this artist feels about or expresses his or her view of our reality, and I get to kind of see that and I'm confronted by it. And how important as a dialogue that's removed from language, I think that's really interesting about art. We don't have to wrestle with or worry about language is great. Language is wonderful and rich in its own. But with language out of the picture, just confronted by images, what a way to communicate. And I can wrestle with what I'm confronted with and arbitrate, negotiate to what extent I feel like that expresses my reality. And then maybe I communicate my reality in a different way. And we maybe we can hone in on something, a shared vision together of who we are as a people. I'll also say, you had mentioned I do philosophy, and it's true, it's my background is philosophy. One of the great theater philosophers that I really like is Bertolt Brecht, who in the 30s, along with people like Nevelson, was working to use art as a tool. He said, art is not just a mirror to reality, it's a hammer with which to shape it. So he's very interested in that activist kind of component. And finally, I'll say in medical education, like all good art, I'm a fan of philosophy, right? So I want to be able to establish the single unitive thing, the theory of everything that harnesses all and explains elegantly Occam's razor one thing. But I've lived long enough to know that that's not real, that the complexity and the gray is where we live. And I will say that when Bertolt Brecht was trying to do this thing with confronting reality, in medicine, physicians in training are trying to learn so many things, basic sciences, so many things that have to go into their education to make them competent. That the frightening thing along the way is whether or not they lose that ability to tolerate uncertainty of who their people are that they're serving, and all that goes into our humanity of uncertainty. So I wonder if art can serve in that kind of confronting piece if we don't see someone else's vision of what they think reality is, then we won't be able to know what we think reality is. So I do think it's really important to collectively keep talking through arts as a medium to give us perspective on maybe what we can converge on as a singular, unified story of who we are inclusively as people. That would be pretty remarkable.
Well, many of you work with children or young adults. Do you feel like art is a useful tool for children, young adults, and adults of any age, really, to access feelings and emotions?
Hey, can y'all hear me? I'm Skylar Sawyer. As introduced, I'm a guardian ad litem, so I'd love to answer some of this question. I only really work with kids. They're my primary clients. And those kids range from little bitty infants, some are neonatal even, to 18 and on the cusp of 19-year-olds. And I deal with children that are traumatized typically. I deal with kids that have limitations naturally, and art in a very literal sense is the only way that I can really communicate with some of these children. I'm sure as the medical field is familiar with, and certainly therapists, art is one of the languages we use to talk to kids and access some of those traumas and try to understand where they're coming from. As their guardian ad litem, I kind of depend on their emotions and them conveying emotion to me, sometimes more than words. So a 4-year-old can't really tell me what they see for their life trajectory or where they feel safe, but they can certainly show me emotions. Sometimes they show that on their face, and sometimes it's with a picture. We see very literal drawings from kids that express quite a bit. And then when you get to teenagers who are a mystery in themselves, I find that music is an art form that I channel a lot. I have some kids that I would call poets. They would tell you they're esteemed rappers. But they use art to communicate with me on a daily basis as well. And in the same ways that I think one of the speakers mentioned, language is removed when you use art in your community. The community I work in depends on us removing that language, because that language has been used against some of my clients a lot. And it's some of the harsh machinery that we try to get away from and just focus on the child. So we love art and what I do.
So I am a mom first and also an educator. And so I teach on the college level, and I try to get my students to revert back to when they were young and they weren't afraid of making mistakes with art, because everyone loves drawing and coloring and painting and Play-Dohing until someone tells them that they're doing it wrong, or they tell themselves that they're doing it wrong. So, I try to tell them, they're, want to get back to that, to get past your inhibitions, because art is not just making imagery. That's what mine think when they get to me. Oh, I need to be able to draw and recognizable things and such. But first and foremost, art is communication. Like, what are you saying? Why are you saying it? And how are you saying it? So, I do want to provide them the tools to be able to draw and paint realistically and such, but more important than that is, what do you want to say with your art? So I tell all of mine, your first 2 years, your freshman, sophomore years, I'm giving you the tools, drawing, painting, technical skills and such, but then after that I'm saying, now, what do you want to say with it? What's important to you? What's inside of you? And just as an artist myself, and as a mom and someone with a job, art is the only thing that I have that is completely mine. Okay, so I get to paint what I want to paint, use the colors that I want, everything that I want. Whereas, I have to show up on time for work. My kids have grown up now and moved out, but I had to get them to school, feed them, make them do their homework and everything. So it was important for me to show them that my own interests were important too, because they're going to grow up and be parents also, and I didn't want them to think that their own lives disappeared in that. So.
Well, I have another question for the panel. how does memory and or narrative function within your discipline, and how do you envision that functioning within the wider community? And our examples are art, and even abstract art, while not narrative, it has a story behind it, and as Louise Nevelson would say, it would be the story you bring to it. It's open-ended. With Aminah Robinson's work, she gives us more kind of a structure of a narrative. We don't know exactly what's happening, and we might be able to read about exactly what's happening. Well, we also bring associations to the works of art ourselves. So my question again is, how does memory and narrative function within your discipline?
I'm happy to go, Monica.
So my work is all about memory and my work is all about my family, my Southern roots. I tribute all of my work is about my mother, my aunts, my grandmother. And when I look at this, first of all, talk about this as I think of Mardi Gras, okay? The hands up and the circle things. So I can't see from the side view, that's all I can see. But for me, I do a lot about feminism again. It's about the lace, the Southern, the Hank blue, so when I came back from grad school, I came back with a different visual or different language of from coming from Northwestern. They make you think, drill this stuff into you. And so I'm like, oh my God, there's so much like heavy stuff here. Like, what? No one's talking about this? And so like the Hank blue, no one's talking about that. Well, I'm sorry. The Hank blue is the ceilings at the Southern, they paint on the porches, the Hank blue, like so that the souls can go up. I'm like, and so for me, the blue is also, now I'm using blue in Tiffany. For that, that's the marriage, Tiffany blue. So I threw a lot of that. So blue's a lot of my colors in the Southern, the ocean, so blue's very important to me. That's one of my colors now. And so now that I've been working since I graduated in 2002 to 26 years, now blue has gone from Hank blue to Tiffany blue, because during that time, Tiffany blue, I was trying to get married. I'm still not married, but it's okay. So, whatever. So I'm over that. I'm over 50, so I'm like, now, next stage. Now I'm like, okay, now the ocean, time to retire. So the blue is the ocean blue now. And so for me, that's memory again. And then, so again, the South and the Gulf Coast, like, no one knows that we have this water around us. The water's like right there. I drove from Pensacola, my mom from Pensacola, to over to Mobile. I'm like, oh my God, that is gorgeous. People don't know that unless you live like where I'm teaching right now. They don't know that water's there in Theodore. They don't know that. They don't know that that's so close to them. And so that's the memory for me.
I'm going to go off what Monica said, for the roots of my artwork. For 20 years, I was a non-objective painter, and, my paintings were conceptually based on landscape and landscape principles. But then, and I never thought I would paint imagery again, but in 2010, I started painting imagery again. And then and I haven't stopped since then. So now my primary subject matter is flowers. And it kind of all ties into me. You know what? I've always wanted my home and my garden to feel like a safe place for my children, a happy place for them to grow up and have good memories, and we had birthday parties and such. So I've always painted, and I've always loved gardening and flowers. And I thought it was just mine, I love painting flowers. it was all about me and everything. And I wouldn't paint flowers if they were all gray, but they're just like endless color possibilities. So I lost my mom in 2020, and she was 2 weeks away from her 90th birthday party. And 91st, sorry, she had made 90. She was 2 weeks away from 91, but still she got to 90. And I was always a pain in the butt teenager and everything, and like, I know everything, you don't know anything. So I remember when I went back into my studio the first day after I lost my mom, and I was surrounded by 9 paintings and all the color was there. And my mom was a color maniac. Like, she had to match every single thing. Her shoes, she had broomstick skirts. I don't know if you know what they are, but they're very brightly textured skirts, and a matching shirt and a handbag. And she would always tell me, I need a lime green t-shirt. Can you go get me a lime green t-shirt from Baker's or Dillard's? And I'm like, Mom, I don't know what lime green is. Our paints are named after the pigments and everything. So, I would drop her crazy because I'm always dressed in gray and black, and not much has changed. So, and I thought, I'm an artist because of me. But when I went back into my studio, the day after her memorial, I got chills. I could feel her everywhere. I'm like, oh, my mom gave me the color. It wasn't just me. It was from my mom. And I am, even though I was in my 50s, I was still a pretentious teenager and didn't realize it. So I have all this gratitude for growing up with a mom that wore insanely bright, crazy colors.
Well, let me ask you this. So these are all positive, happy memories. And memory, as we know, doesn't always function on that level. Some of it is subconscious memory that maybe we don't want to face. Some of it's like a cultural memory that we as a community don't want to face. Do you feel like art functions in that way? I mean, that also can be a positive way that art can function, the rooting out all of those feelings and emotions.
I can speak to some of that in my work life. Earlier you were asking about memory and narrative, and then some of the memories that might not be positives. With the children I work with, the power of narrative is kind of necessary for me to communicate with them. They might have gone through something really horrific, but in the way they tell me, it sometimes can have a very positive twist, in the same way that some of the art we're seeing, especially in some of Robinson's, might have a very bittersweet, poignant background, but it's framed in a way that's almost sacred and beautiful. These kids can tell you their narrative, which to some might sound horrific, but if you hear it from the right perspective, or you're open to the right perspective, they'll tell you a story that's really beautiful, and I get chills thinking about some of those stories. And I think the power of narrative allows us to create the identity that we want, and also protect parts of our identity that we need, that we consider kind of sacred. In a lot of the ways, I would think Robinson's kind of background is sacred in some of her art. So the memories they choose to keep, they can, and the ones they want to contort in a way that helps them survive, they can do that too. So I think those have a lot of value.
Can I piggyback on that, Louise? Yeah, Skylar, right on. So I had a friend of mine who had a breast cancer, and she said, please don't anyone tell me that I'm going to have a journey. She did not want to have a journey. She was so horrified by her illness, did not want to have a journey. And I respected that this is not something, an illness experience is not something that she was embarking on, looking forward to it at all. And physicians and patients meet where illness begins, through the body. And I look at Nevelson's work too, the slabs of, it's not marble, it's, what's the medium? Wood, and then the sculptures. Bronze, is that right? Yeah. The wood and the bronze, they are these heavy edges, and you can't do anything. I mean, cancer happens to you. It's not, so there's autonomy, right? There's the authorial crafting of the narrative, and then there's what happens to you. And the negotiation between that and a patient is the human experience. We all as soon as we are born, we are dying. As soon as we are born, we experience hardship. It's part of what we share together. And what I see in her work, and Aminah's work too, which I love, but it's just that slabs and the edges. Out of that, we craft the stuff. But the edges are there. There's not anything we can do about some of those things. Some of Nevelson's wood pieces, the column-like things, with weird pieces of your household objects stuck onto it. I was saying to Ala earlier when we were talking, the older I get, that's how I feel. You know, they're just like pieces of life stuck onto me. I didn't ask for this. It's here. Every wrinkle, every aspect of my body has been shaped by my environment, my living, and the hard way of living. And that's the lot of the human condition. So there's that authorial piece, the how we get to shape things, but in terms of memory, some things you cannot shake. And in healthcare, there are aspects of that. Sometimes there's the journey that ends in success and you ring the bell, and sometimes it ends in death. And in order to make sense of that, in order to permit that to be and to accept that, and even for some, they get to find their way to embracing that, there's a lot of work on memory that has to be done to find ways of including objects or parts of yourself in the whole that are maybe ones that you're not that excited about, but that just are. I think there's a lot that can go on.
Well, I see on social media moms saying, we're gonna go and make memories, and that makes me kind of like flinch, because you might be making not the memory that you're intending to make.
Screaming as you leave.
Exactly. Who's had a family trip that didn't end up all sunshine and smiles? A car trip, a long car trip. Exactly.
I made many of those memories myself with my children. Mine are in their 20s now. I often ask them, after I apologize, how did I emotionally scar you? And how can I make it better? Just wanted to say too about memory, I admire, one of my favorite things about art is artists make the ordinary extraordinary. So taking pieces of wood, buttons, just normal, everyday things that we would discount, and turning them into art is, I'm sorry, I didn't make that's how I heard it. That is one thing that I try to get through to my students. Art can elevate anything, but I still, make my kids unhappy to this day.
Well, what about the possibility of art to awaken possibilities? Do we see that in a communal lens?
I've been in environments where we have groups of teenagers together. I get to help with some leadership, mentorship activities as a volunteer and in my daily work. And it's amazing if you throw a piece of art at a group of diverse kids that have nothing in common. Sometimes they're from very polar opposites of the world. And you stick a piece of art and you might get a universal huh? Or you might get a wow, or you have no idea, but we all had an emotional experience together that removed language around something beautiful. Anyway, that's what I think.
I often ask my students, does art have to be beautiful to be successful?
No.
Leading question, thank you.
Art is communication. That is its number one reason for existing, is communicating. What are you saying? And our world does not always have good news and beauty. So, like if you think about Picasso's Guernica, the whole reason it's black and white is because he read about the massacre in a newspaper, and was that the city he grew up in, or just?
I don't think it was the city.
But he was from Spain, and Guernica was in Spain, and so that, he was, the reason for the painting was to communicate the horror and the suffering that happened in this city. So, art is not just pretty. Pretty is good, but our world is not just pretty. So, what are you gonna say? How are you gonna say it? Why are you saying it?